Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Nick's Video Game Collecting Show. Today we're going to take a look at my Famicom collection. It's a small collection, but I've got quite a few games that I think are pretty cool and I think you'll find interesting. Famicom is the Japanese version of the Nintendo Entertainment System. It stands for Family Computer and it came out in about 1983 or so. It's got many of the same games as the United States Nintendo Entertainment System, but there's actually many games that are unique to the Japanese Famicom that are really cool and really fun to play that we just didn't get here. So I want to take you through a few of those because if I'm going to collect games for the Japanese Famicom, I want to get games that you can't get here in the United States. And I've got 5 that I've purchased over the years that are really fun to play, really different from what you got in the United States, and really unique that I think you'll find interesting. So I actually do have a Japanese Famicom. A friend of mine actually picked one up for me when he went on a trip to Japan. He actually picked up the Sharp Twin Famicom, which was a big box that contains both the regular Famicom as well as the Famicom disk system. It's about that big, that thick. It's pretty hefty. I can't believe he actually carted it around Japan and back for me. Unfortunately, once I got it back here, I actually fried it by plugging it into the wrong voltage, so it doesn't work. Which is unfortunate. I would have liked to actually try it out, but a lot of the newer NES HD systems have the ability to actually play Famicom games. The AVS or the Retron 5, you can actually play the Famicom games on there. So I've actually been able to play these games on that. So why don't we go through the 5 games that I have that are really fun to play and really interesting. First we have the Goonies. 3 of the games of the 5 games I have actually have the boxes. The Japanese players actually took a lot better care of their stuff than North American and United States kids did. So it's often a lot easier to find games that are in complete condition rather than what you would find for the NES, where half the time the cartridges are beat up, the label's ripped, they're written on, whatever. Japanese kids took a lot better care of their stuff, and I'm thankful for that. So we've got the Goonies, which was not released in the United States. We got Goonies 2 from Konami, but the original version of Goonies was more of a single-screen type game. They actually released it for the Nintendo Verse system, and I also think it's for the Nintendo PlayChoice 10. And it's a single-screen game. You play as Mikey. You go through, you have to collect different treasures and the different Goonies and go from stage to stage. There's about 5 stages. So you take a look at the art. It's the art that I think was on the actual original DVD release. Pretty cool. Comes with the cartridge itself. I've got the book. And I think there's some other cool stuff in here as well. No, just the book. Similar to the Game Boy style books that you would get. Smaller than the NES booklets. You see the Japanese writing there, details of the items. But neat cartridge. The NES cartridges were all pretty much the same. Certainly the licensed cartridges, other than Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, which were gold. Pretty much every other cartridge is the same mold. The unlicensed games, of course, you got the Tengen, and you got the Color Dreams, and all of those are all on different types of cartridges. But in Japan, every company kind of made their cartridges and their cases differently. So there wasn't that standardization, which makes the games a lot more unique and fun to collect. So this is a pretty cool game. A lot of people back in the day, they'd say, well, what happened to Goonies 1? We've got Goonies 2. Where can I buy Goonies 1? It just didn't come out in the United States. Then we've got Star Wars, which is a game by Namco, and this is kind of an infamous game. The case is real cool. It's shiny. You notice that they open this way rather than how a book would open in North America. I think the Japanese actually read things right to left rather than left to right like we do. The cartridge is cool. It's shiny. It's kind of a bluish tint, I would say. You've got some pixel art on the actual label itself. It comes with a nice booklet. There's some stickers that you can put on the cartridge. Some of these have been unfortunately used, but still really good condition for a 30-something-year-old game. And this is far different than the North American version of Star Wars. This is by Namco. You've probably seen some videos on the internet. You fight Darth Vader, he turns into a scorpion, or the other way around. You can see some of the graphics there. Very different from what we got in North America. Fun game, pretty cool game, but far different from what we got here. This is actually my favorite of the bunch. This is Splatter House. I think it's pronounced Wanpaku Graffiti. So Splatter House is a game that I actually have for the TurboGrafx. It's kind of a game where you play as somebody who looks like Jason from Freddy vs. Jason or Friday the 13th with the hockey mask. And he goes around, he has a 2x4. He basically kills zombies and a lot of other types of horror-themed enemies. This is super deformed art style here, so it's more like cartoons and short little guys, but it's a parody of a lot of horror movies and other horror type games. A lot of funny scenes that you'll play in the game. The first level where you go and you fight Dracula and he just dances in front of you. There's another level that's kind of a parody of The Exorcist there, but in a kind of a silly way if you look at the art there on the front cover. Fun game, was not released in the United States. Pretty easy to beat, but always fun to play through around the Halloween time frame. The art is, and you can see how this cartridge is different than the other two. It's blue, it's taller, comes with a booklet. Come on, get in there. A booklet. I believe there are some stickers here as well. Actually, no stickers, but just more fun art to look at. Your typical send in your information type of stuff. And you see it's by Namco, but it's spelled Namcot over there. So, again, just some of the differences that you see between North American and Japanese releases. So for the last two games, I actually only have the cartridges. I don't have the booklets. I don't have the cases. First, we have Ghostbusters 2. Very different from what we got here. It's a top-down Zelda type of viewpoint for this game where you play as two players, kind of like Mickey Mousecapade, where you have one player and then you control another one at the same time. One is for the beam, the other one's to set the trap. It's actually created by HAL, which is a Nintendo second party. They actually released this for the Game Boy here in North America, but the NES version is kind of an awful game. This is far superior and really cool to play. You should definitely check this one out. Seek it out. Emulate it if you can. If not, maybe check out the Game Boy version. Then lastly, we have Kid Dracula. I think it's got a more complex name than that. Obviously, I can't read the Japanese, but here in North America, it was, again, released for the Game Boy as Kid Dracula, and it's kind of a parody-style game as well. You're starring as the son of Dracula, which later on would come to be known as Alucard, which is Dracula spelled backwards. Some of the bosses in this game actually ended up in Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation, but the first stage is really based on the first stage or maybe the whole of Castlevania. So it's really fun to play. Pretty easy, but the type of game that you just didn't get here in the United States. A lot more silly and less serious games in Japan that we would be less likely to have got here. We had a lot more of the Rambo type games. You see Power Blade, for example, was kind of a silly game over there, and here the guy on the cover kind of looks like the Terminator almost. So, really fun game to play. Had to seek this out because I try to get as many Konami games as possible. It's one of my favorite publishers, and I'm trying to get every cartridge of theirs. And as you can see with this group there, some of the games that they made were only released in Japan, but still that doesn't affect the quality. These are games that you can all play without having to know Japanese. They're not too complex. There's not a lot of reading. They're mostly just platformers that you kind of can play through like you would any other platformer on the NES. So that's my entire Famicom collection. Only 5 games. I try to prioritize which games seem like they're going to be fun to play there, as opposed to the NES where I'm just trying to get every single game. So you got a lot of junk. For the Famicom, there's a lot of cool stuff that didn't make it here. And really, it would behoove you to try to seek some of that stuff out and give it a shot, because it's a lot of fun to play and really adds a lot more to the classic Nintendo 8-bit library. With that said, if you have any suggestions for other Famicom games I should get, leave them in the comments. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And please don't forget to click subscribe. So I'll see you guys next time.